Good day, grade 12 learners, and we are now in our second video. This covers section B. This is a much larger section than the previous video that I did with section A. So remember, there's going to be section A, section B, and section C. So here we are with the 2022 paper. We've gone through question 1 and question 2. So again, we are now looking at section B. So we're just going to do a quick overview. You can see what they're asking us here. Looks more like the specs of the PC, some hardware, some printing. Then we've got internet and network technologies. And then information management and social implications. I think that wraps up, oh no, solution development as well. Okay, so you can see there are a couple of questions inside of this section. So the first thing that we're going to get is this. And here now we are going to get hardware items. This is typical, so please familiarize yourself with the hardware. And you can see it can be anything from a headset to cabling to a power supply. Please, people, this is a power supply. This is not a fan. This is not an aircon. This is a power supply. I say this because I sat with National Marking last year, and there were many of you, and not you, but others, that got this wrong. So please, please, please know how to identify that. Right. So we're going to look at these quickly. And again, we need to mention not only what it is, but also its main function. So this is what? A headset. We know what it does. It's got a microphone. We can listen to audio, you know, all of that. Then we've got our cabling. Now, which one is this? UTP or STP? This is STP. How do I know that? These are twisted pairs, right? So I know it's a twisted pair cable. But this shielding over here, and I've just given it away now. This is shielding over the twisted pair, hence the name, shielded twisted pair cabling. And what does it do? It transmits data over the network, okay, or between devices. Then what have we got here? These are all examples of cloud storage. And we know what cloud storage does. It's, you know, storage on remote servers that we can use. We've got our power supply as well. And what does it do? And please, when you give the answer, it's power supply unit. Okay. This is hardware, an internal component. And what does it do? It supplies power to the computer. All right. Let's continue. So there you can see name and main function. Right. Then 3.5, explain how multiprocessing can be used to improve the performance of a computer. So when we're talking about multiprocessing, this is the fact that we've got multiple processing cores on a single CPU. Why does that, or how does it improve? It improves the performance by executing many processes at the same time. Multi-processing. Okay. Then, you are interested in purchasing a new computer, and the RAM specification is as follows. 16 gigs DDR4, 2666 megahertz. They're asking, what does this 266 megahertz actually mean? Right? That indicates the frequency. Next question. Would this RAM be sufficient for a gaming computer? Well, 16 gigs of DDR4, I would say yes. Why? Because it's 16 gigs, number one. So there's over enough. DDR4 refers to the overall speed. Okay, overall speed for the gaming. And then this frequency simply means that there's faster loading times, which leads to a better gaming experience. All right. So we've got all of that. Explain why you can still use graphics on your computer, even if you take the graphics out. Well, that's because most of the time you have onboard graphics or integrated graphics in your motherboard anyway. Then, typical question, the difference between your SSD and hard drive, your HDD. So please, just understand the following. You can't just say it's faster, it's slower, it's expensive. You need to justify. So for example, you need to say, the SSD has no moving mechanical parts as opposed to the hard drive, the traditional hard drive. Or you could say that the SSDs have no moving parts and the HDDs contain spinning movable heads, right? You could also indicate that the SSDs are more resistant to physical shock. They run silently and have quicker access time and lower latency, right? You can use any of those. Don't just say it's faster. It's not going to be accepted. SSDs are also more expensive, but you can't just leave it there. It's going to be more expensive per unit of storage than your hard drives, your traditional hard drives. Okay. Right. Let's move on. Examine this port. What is this? This is a VGA port. What does it do? It gives me a video signal, right? So from the PC, you'll plug your cable in here to your monitor, and it transmits video only. All right, PlayStation 5 is backward compatible. What does that mean? It simply means that the newer technology can still read the older technology. So your PlayStation 4 games can still work in a PlayStation 5, but the PlayStation 5 games won't work in a PlayStation 4. Next one, dealing with a printer, we can see this is, if we just look at the ad, what are we reading here? This device can print, scan, copy, which means it's a what? It's a multifunction printer. The fact that the resolution says 600 by 600 dpi, what does that mean? The dpi is referring to dots per inch. The higher the number, the more dots per inch, the better the quality. Then your ppm, what does that mean? Pages per minute or prints per minute. It's the number of pages that this printer can print in a given minute. So for black, it's going to be higher than for color. Okay. What would the wireless specification allow one to do? To connect to a network or mobile device wirelessly. That's what the name implies. There we go. Question 3. You see again, hardware, name of the hardware, and its function. Name of the hardware and its function. So what is this? This is a biometric scanner, scanning your fingerprints. This is a graphics card. Right? This is a serious graphics card. What do we have here? Augmented reality. Because you see it's taking a real picture and it's adding things to it. So it's augmenting the reality that you have there. This, you can see this is all related to cryptocurrency. So can you see the type of things that can actually come up? And that was just 2023. Then we have 2 examples of operating systems that can be used on a desktop. I mean, you can use any examples over there, from Windows to iOS, whatever it is. Okay. Then describe 4 examples of functions that an operating system has. That's grade 10, the functions of the operating system. Solid state drives and hard drives. You see, again, the difference between the two. Difference between your SSD and traditional hard drive. Then disk defragmentation. Modern operating systems periodically reorder the files on the hard drive to reduce this fragmentation. Give 2 reasons why it is not recommended on solid state drives. Okay, so can you see they've just changed a question there as well, but they're still asking you how is the SSD different from the traditional hard drive. Then the difference between RAM and ROM, that's something that does come up. Now it wasn't there in 2022, but we found it in 2023. We continue on there, file extensions, and yeah, that was the end of the paper for 2023. Now I want to just look at 2024 because we're going to find if we are moving in the same direction, then we should then see something happen here, because we're going to identify trends now. We've seen 2022, we've looked now at 2023, and let's see if the trend continues in 2024. So, section B, question number 3. Slightly different. So the 4 stages of the information processing cycle. What distinguishes a laptop from a desktop? Right, in terms of design and purpose. What is meant by the concept of a two-in-one device? Look here, look here. Compare a hard disk drive to a solid-state drive. What is meant by the pairing of devices? Describe what metadata is. Do you see what I see at the bottom of the screen? It's coming. There we go. Hardware components again. What do we have here? We have RAM. We have a graphics card. We have a stylus pen. Okay. So can you see purpose of the operating system? Didn't we have that? Discuss the difference between utility software and application software. Provide an example of utility software and application software. Give one advantage and one disadvantage of using online applications. I mean, an advantage and a disadvantage is the fact that they work from the internet. So an advantage is I can access it anywhere because of the internet, and the disadvantage is if the internet goes down, I can't access anything. Provide two functions of a multifunction printer. Remember that image we saw earlier? So any of those, the fact that it can print, copy, scan, any of those. Look at this, look at this. Analyze the two computer adverts. Can you see the theme that's actually coming through in question number 3? Right? Here we're comparing two computers. We've got our hardware that side, we've got it this side, and we need to now look at those, and then they'll ask us questions based on that. So how much RAM does the one have? What's the difference between the operating systems? What type of long-term storage is available on both machines? So please familiarize yourself with this. Go and look at computer ads. Go and see what's out there. And really just get to grips with this. Understand what is being indicated there. All right. Then they talk about peripherals. Will one come with peripherals? The other one doesn't. This one, it's just the tower. Right? It's just our system unit. Whereas here we've got our system unit with a screen, keyboard, mouse. These are all peripherals that we have over here. So this one comes with those peripherals. Then they wanted us to compare the machines again. Then I see some troubleshooting as well. If the computer has suddenly started experiencing a decrease in speed and processing, what could the potential cause be? Also looking at how would you fix this. So they give you a scenario, you've got to work out what the problem is, and then how one could fix that. Okay, then they just mention here also another question about how you could share photos among friends, how to uninstall a program, and when it does not meet the minimum system requirements. Like, what does that actually mean? The minimum system requirements. Remember, that's the minimum specs in terms of hardware that is needed for the software to install and run. Now, it's not going to run beautifully. It's not going to run fantastically, but it will run. So if we want it to run at its optimum, then we should go for the recommended system requirements. Okay, utility software to speed up the disk access. We know what those are. We've got our disk scan utility. We've got our disk defragmentation. So you need to work out which of those it actually is. We've got our scan disk. So folks, remember, utility software is what? Software that is built into the operating system. Okay, so don't forget that. Then, recommended a method in which a user could share a word processing document in such a way that other users could edit it at the same time. So there you can work that out. And that's question 3. So this should give you a good idea of what you can expect. In question 3, you can see our hardware components are always there with the main function. You can see that there's hardware spec questions as well. But most of it just revolves around the hardware and software on the machines in question number 3. So we're still in section B. We've gotten through the long question 3. Now we're looking at question 4 from 2022. They give us a scenario here that the large national insurance company has its head office in Joburg. You've got 2 towers there with 10 levels, and you've got a link between these 2 towers. Now they ask us things like, what sort of network cables are we going to be using? Would we use UTP? Would we use STP? Would we use fiber? Be able to identify that and indicate why. Like UTP is cheaper. STP offers more protection against EMI or electromagnetic interference. And then fiber is the fastest of the lot and has no risk to EMI anyway. Okay, but it is more expensive. Then you're going to get some questions on the network topologies, mainly things like the bus topology, the star topology, and the mesh topology. So please know that I do have that in the gizmo.ai and in some of the presentations I've done. So familiarize yourself with that. Next one, they're asking what sort of interference could we get from a radio station next door? What did I mention here in 4.1? Electromagnetic interference. The only cable that would be susceptible to that would be our UTP cabling. All right. Tower A receives the ISP connection and shares it with Tower B. If Tower A had a power failure, well, then Tower B goes down. Okay. Then currently all emails and file sharing is managed on an internal server, but you are considering migrating to cloud-based. What is the advantage? What is the disadvantage? I saw that in a previous paper already. Right. In order to minimize downtime across the buildings due to power failures, where might you decide to place network switches in the buildings? So you would want to look at having a network switch maybe for each floor that connects to the server room, so that if one floor goes down, it doesn't affect the other floor. Look at this. Has this come up before? The difference between the internet and the intranet. So what's the primary purpose of that? It's an internet-like environment that provides information through that environment to the organization only. So only the people in the organization have access to that internet-like environment. And the purpose of it is just to keep all the company data and information inside the company, that only people inside the company can have access to it. Okay, a user can access, user access rights can limit what a user can do to a network. Give 2 examples of access rights. So, I mean, you could go the route of saying, well, they only have maybe rights to certain printers. Maybe they can only download certain things. Maybe they might only have a certain amount of internet speed, anything like that. Then, what is a hotspot? The digital divide. Do you see how these are coming up? Right, question 5. So these are fairly short questions here. So question 5 will always deal with some practical aspects, and a lot of the time it is access. So how do we insert restrictions? What possible field would need to be inserted to differentiate between records, the records of each siblings in that particular case? So we could use ID. What table setting would need to be applied to this field so that the database recognizes that it's a field that uniquely, there's your keyword, uniquely identifies each record? That's your primary key. Then they talk about your questionnaire. You've then got that, and they're referring you to an electronically created questionnaire, like the one in Word. They'll talk about open questions and closed questions. Okay, so yeah. This is one that always comes up, your input, processing, and output. They'll give you a scenario and then ask you, in doing this, can you explain where input comes in? Can you explain processing in this scenario? Can you explain output in this scenario? So please answer to the scenario. Question 6. Here they're talking about social implications. So social media can also come up, but it's not specific to that. Here they talk about 2 dangers of TikTok, the difference between a mobile and a virtual office. Now, please, when it comes to that, get the wording correct. Your mobile office is a customized vehicle that includes a working space with relevant devices and an internet connection. So if you look at some of these units that people have on their property or that they can rent out, it's got like everything you need in your office, but it is mobile. Right? Maybe it's you sitting somewhere, you've got everything you need around you. That's a mobile office. The virtual office does not exist physically. So your mobile office It's got to be physical and movable. Your virtual is not physical. Here, the service provider provides you with a range of business functions that can be accessed through the internet. Okay, so please just get the difference between the two. The POPI Act, that comes up as well. What does it stand for? What is its main purpose? Discuss the statement at 6.3 above in terms of how it relates to the POPI Act. Cyber stalking comes up, ransomware, in other words, malware, phishing, farming, ransomware, all these things can come up here. And then lastly, we've got question 7, solution development. So again, these are things that you'll find coming through in your PAT, because here they're talking about your layout and formatting should be consistent through your planning phases. Specify 2 ways that you can achieve this. Your bibliography at the end of phase 1, footnotes and endnotes. So these are questions that can come up that relate to the PAT, not specifically to it, but it can relate to that. Here we've got some questions based on Excel. They wanted to create a 6-character ID. How would you go about doing that? So in other words, they can ask you some prac questions in the theory format. Okay. Then your input mask here, you can see as well, here's some HTML. So you can get a myriad of different questions coming up in this section. And that's the end of section B. Now look at that. 75 marks for section B. Have we done anything majorly difficult? No. Okay, so please go through these things. But let's have a look now at 2023. 2023, starts off with our internet and network technologies again. Do you see the same thing cropping up? The ISP, the internet. The heading says internet and network technologies. So what is an ISP? Not just the acronym. What is the ISP? What does it do? What service does it offer? What is a router? What hardware do you need to allow people to connect to a Wi-Fi network? And please, these are access points. Okay. Your WLAN, what does that mean? It means it's a wireless local area network. Now, have I explained? No, I haven't quite explained. You can indicate that acronym, wireless local area network. But what does it do? It allows devices in the network to connect wirelessly. Right? Several methods exist for connecting the network in the office to the workshop. What mechanism would you recommend? So how do we get another area to connect to that same internet? How do we do that? We can do that with a network cable. We can do that with a Wi-Fi range extender. An advantage and disadvantage, VPNs, your cloud, again, the cloud comes up, your online storage. Let's see what else. Again, malware. Right, that was question 4. Then question 5 here in 2023. Again, you see there? Why is defining your task important? So a lot of these things that you'll find in question 5 is related again to what you did in the PAT. And there's the POPI Act again. Okay. Question 6, our social implications. There we've got that underway. This one's now talking about you just received a statement from a bank describing a deposit. The statement includes a link. So here we're talking about the fishing and farming story that work together. Here's another scenario. Again, talking about different types of malware, your ransomware, etc. So there's quite a bit of that, encrypting data. Now, this was an interesting one. Your cousin lives in a town that has been badly affected by flooding. Describe 2 ways that social media can help during a natural disaster. So you'll come up with any 2 ways in which you can do that. Identify the 2 dangers of relying on social media for information. Then the difference between a digital native and a digital immigrant. So a digital native is someone who has grown up with technology, like you lot are digital natives. Those that have not and have had to learn how to use technology later in life, they are the digital immigrants. Okay, so yeah, if that hasn't come up, that is something new that I've seen there. Then give 2 methods of managing information overload. I mean, you can just prioritize the info, avoid multitasking. You can filter some of your information. You can ignore certain things as well. It's okay to ignore, right? No problem with that. Then solution development. What feature in MS Word? So we're talking about features in Word here. Describe a method of printing the document that will not show. Do you see that these are prac questions? What feature of MS Excel? What is a foreign key in a database? Small business wants to use the client's name as the primary key. Why would that be a bad idea? So understanding your prac concepts is definitely going to help you here in question 7. There's HTML as well. And yeah, guys, that's what brings section B to an end. That's again 75 marks in 2023. And then lastly, let's look at 2024. So yeah, starting again from question 4, how would you explain what the internet is? Now, we've already defined, what a network is, and the internet is simply a massive network of computers all around the world that are connected together. For 2 marks, they'll give you that as 1 mark. The next mark will be, what was our definition of a network? 2 or more computing devices connected through some sort of media for the purpose of sharing information. So your second mark can come from, it allows people to share information from anywhere. It allows them to communicate from anywhere. It allows them to access a vast amount of data from anywhere. So anywhere, one of those you can use. Then how does a LAN differ from the internet? Well, we know our LAN covers a specific geographical area, right? Whereas the internet, we're talking about a global network connecting millions of computers. So there's your difference. Provide a suitable example to demonstrate your understanding of the Internet of Things. Now, there you can have any example the way you understand it, because look at this, your understanding of the Internet of Things. Okay. Then VPNs again. There's VPNs coming up again. And then topologies. Now, I just want to show you this from the memo. This is a very nice picture. So have a look at that. And there we can see our different topologies. Your point-to-point, your bus, tree, mesh, hybrid, which is a combination of everything, your ring, and your star. This is how the data is communicated. It does not mean that the computers are physically set up like that. Okay? This is the logical way that they are working. Right. So they wanted you to draw that. Then discuss one method of securing access to a computer or network, your firewalls, your FTP protocol. I just want to touch on that because that comes up every now and then. Make sure you get the correct wording. What is it? What does it stand for? The File Transfer Protocol. What does it do? The purpose here is to do what? Is to transfer files between a client and a server over the network. And it's usually for large files. Okay? The difference between a podcast and a vodcast, one is audio only, the other one is video, but you know these things. The difference between your blog and your vlog, now that I'm just mentioning this. What is an IP address? All right. Then question 5, again, we get our scenario and they'll ask you, look at questions on surveys, formatting. How should you present the data? Types of questions, your open and your closed questions. Question 6, your social implications. Again, authentication, mobile device authentication. 2 economic disadvantages for businesses using computer technology. Okay, do you see the type of questions that are coming up? Here's one that many of you get wrong. What is meant by your digital footprint? It's the trail of data that you are leaving behind when you use the internet. Now, this is for 2 marks. So that's your 1 mark. The next is you need to give an example. So you could say, listen, it includes things like the websites I visit or the emails I send. You could even say that it can be used to track your online activity. Okay, anything like that. And then question 7, as we mentioned before, solution development. They're going to give you some prac items, ask you to provide some solutions for that. So Yeah, once you've written your prac, don't just throw all that data away out of your head. Now look at this in 2024. Look at that. 85 marks for section B. So 2022 it was 75, 2023 it was 75, and in 2024 it was 85. So grade 12s, I hope this gives you a solid idea of what you can expect in the 2025 paper by looking at the trends and what we've picked up and what we've seen covered regularly in 2022, 2023, and 2024. So I'll see you in our video on section C.